What's up guys, my name is Mark Steiner, and today we're going to be reviewing the Laowa 10mm f2.8 Dreamer. Let's get right into it. This lens is actually insane. I was debating picking it up for quite a while, and man, am I glad that I finally did. It gives such a unique perspective and can really spice up your photo and video content. Personally, I've been using it mostly for short form video content since the vertical format restricts you so much in framing, but this lens really helps give you more room to work with. I've been really enjoying it for longer tracking shots, interiors, and real estate, and for some really unique angles in fashion shoots. Let's get into the physical traits of this lens. This is one of the most unique lenses on the market right now. Based off the cinema lens, this is the mirrorless version with autofocus. It's a completely all metal build, which makes this lens a little chunky for this size, weighing in at 420 grams, but it is girthy all the way around. It is a bit of a struggle mounting it to the camera, and because it's so girthy, I almost have no space to put my fingers if I'm holding this lens handheld. This is a pretty utilitarian lens. It's truly stripped back to the bare basics. You have a big focus ring on the front of the lens and an AF/MF switch on the side, and that's it. It comes with a detachable lens hood as well, and if you want to use filters on this lens, you are going to have to detach it. Speaking of filters, this lens has a 77mm filter thread. I've attached the step-up ring to use my 82mm filters on this. The front element is actually tiny. Look how much of this lens is not glass. And a fun little tidbit, because this is a third-party lens and it's made completely of metal, you get a custom message when you turn off the camera. This lens does have a rubber gasket at the back, so it does have some level of weather sealing, even though Laowa doesn't advertise this as a weather sealed lens. So if you're looking to take this out in the elements, just be aware it might not be able to withstand that and you risk damaging your equipment. This lens obviously isn't a native Sony lens, so that means you're not getting focus breathing compensation, and that's really unfortunate because this lens could use it. You're going to notice it when you're going from minimum focusing distance to infinity and for some other drastic focus pulls, but I think in general, and you'll see in the focus tests, that it's not that big of an issue, but it would have been nice to have. This lens has a minimum focusing distance of 12 centimeters, which is absolutely insane for how wide of a lens this is. That means it basically focuses on anything a centimeter away from the front element of this lens. You can get some really cool and unique looking shots at that minimum focusing distance too. Now onto the photo autofocus test. This is going to be a reoccurring theme with this lens, but because this lens is so wide, your subject is going to have to be pretty close in the frame for the autofocus to actually pick up. Once it does pick up, it's pretty accurate and sticky, and I have no issue with it, but be aware of how close you need to be in order to get it to work. If the eye autofocus doesn't catch on to your subject, the normal autofocus is pretty accurate too, and I don't really have any issues with the autofocus performance. It does have a little autofocus stutter in photo mode where it breathes a bit before locking focus, but I have no issue with this. Occasionally, it will miss focus and you will have to press the shutter again to refocus, but it usually gets it on the second try when this happens. In low light, it does struggle a little bit more, but I still think the performance is acceptable for what this lens is. Now onto the video autofocus test. This first test is shot wide open at 24 FPS, and to me, it seems to be tracking very, very well. Because this lens is so wide, you're going to have a lot of forgiveness when it comes to focus because everything is in focus. There is such deep focus on this lens, so if your subject is in the ballpark of the framing, it's going to be in focus. At 24 frames per second, I'm extremely happy with how this lens is performing. It's quick and snappy, and unless I'm going to minimum focusing distance, the breathing is not super noticeable to me. Now this next test is at 120 frames per second, which has a 10% crop on the A7S III, which makes this a 11mm lens, and you can see the corners clean up a bit and we're a bit more punched in. As I backpedal, I'm completely in focus and then kind of just hit that distance where I melt into the background. When I run forward, there isn't that moment where it picks me up. I just kind of entered the focal plane where the IAF recognizes a face, and then from there, the lens does a great job tracking me. I might look a little soft as I come to a stop, but it's kind of hard to tell, and if it's hard to tell at 120 FPS, then it's probably fine. As I duck down, you can see the focus breathing occur around the edges, but the transition is smooth. As I come up, once again, there's a bit of breathing, but it catches me instantly and locks on. As I hop off to the side, once again, the breathing is noticeable, but the focus shift is very smooth. And as I hop back into frame, there is a bit of breathing, but not as much as previously, and it is an instant lock on and smooth transition once again. One last run to camera, and it tracks me well the entire time, and I do look a bit more sharp. And then I move into minimum focusing distance territory with my eye, and it does a great job of tracking that too. I wanted to show you how close I'm getting to this lens because it feels like my eyeball is practically pressed up against the lens and it's still tracking me and in focus. Just the tiniest of movements backwards, and it has a huge impact on framing. Let's move on to some photo samples. While this is a perfectly capable photography lens and can be super useful in real estate, architecture, or landscape photography, I personally picked up this lens for video, and I've been using it almost exclusively for that purpose. However, the photos you can get out of this are quite unique. I felt like I was taking photos that felt almost unreal, making locations look cooler than they actually were. It's definitely not a portrait lens unless you're purposely going for that wide-angle, exaggerated look. It's not the sharpest, and it does suffer from some chromatic aberration, but I really don't mind it on this lens. There is still no correction profile in Lightroom, but surprisingly, the new little brother of this lens does have a profile. So now let's talk about the pros and cons of this lens. The main selling point of this lens is that it's a super wide autofocusing lens, and depending on who you are, that wideness might be a pro or a con. It has that wide angle distortion look going on, which I think is quite cool. One thing to note is that this is a zero distortion lens, so all the lines remain straight even at this wide angle. One thing that I have noticed is that the corners can get super warpy on this lens, kind of like Canon stabilization. So the solution that I found that basically mitigates all warpiness in the corners is switching my camera to active stabilization. Now this has a 10% crop on the image, so you're actually getting a 11mm look, but it completely mitigates the warpiness and you just get the most buttery, smooth video imaginable, even handheld. Another con that I've already mentioned is that because it's not native Sony glass, you're not getting focus breathing compensation, but you can decide how much of a deal breaker that is for you. Another con is that even though this lens has a rubber gasket, it is not advertised as weather sealed, and I wouldn't trust this lens out in a rainstorm, so that's just my preference personally. I'm gonna be keeping this one dry. And the final con that I want to talk about is just like its pure girthiness. I know that some people have complained that it doesn't fit on certain camera cages because it is just so wide at the base. Otherwise, there are just not a lot of downsides to this lens. I was able to pick this lens up for $760. It retails for $800, which I think is completely fair for what you're getting. There are no real comparisons to be made here. The closest lenses to this are going to be the Sony 16mm f1.8 and the brand new 12mm f2.8 from Laowa, which is just like the little brother of this lens. I don't really know why you would pick that one up over this one because this one is just more versatile. And when you're using active stabilization and cropping in post, you're going to want the extra width anyway. This is the widest angle autofocus lens out there. You're not going to find anything else like it. It is truly unique and incredible what they were able to achieve with this lens. That being said, I absolutely do not think that this should be your first or even your second lens. But if you're looking for a unique lens that brings a totally different perspective to your work that allows you to stand out, this is the lens for you. This has quickly become one of the coolest lenses I own, and when I'm using it on client shoots, they're always amazed at how it just looks like a drone when I'm flying it on a gimbal. This lens loves motion. Whether it's handheld or on a gimbal, this thing needs to move to show off how cool it is. And I'm genuinely so excited that a lens company is pushing the boundaries of innovation and coming out with fun, creative new lenses that really change the game. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. My name is Mark Steiner, and I will see you next time.